This is the I Am Salt Lake podcast, showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. This is episode 14. My name is Chris Hollifield, and today we're recording in beautiful downtown Salt Lake City. First of all, I just really want to give a big thank you to a couple people that have allowed me on their, well, more than a couple people, but some individuals that recently allowed me to come on to their radio stations and talk about the podcast and get to know them a little bit better and get to know what they're doing here in Salt Lake City. First things, I want to really give a big shout out and thank you to John over at AmericanMusiciansRadio.com. He's running an online radio show here in Salt Lake City called UtahMusicians.net. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, seriously, I cannot urge you enough to hop on over to, after you're done listening to this podcast, of course, go over to UtahMusicians.net and check out his project that he's got going on. He's got continual local music playing. So if you're a local band, submit some music for him to be played. But check out his show. He allowed me to come on and talk about the podcast and let my voice get heard a little bit. And hopefully I can return the favor and get him here on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. So check him out, UtahMusicians.net. Also, I want to thank, I just had an opportunity here to go on the local lounge up at the Weber State University, up in Ogden, 88.1. Some really great guys running that and allowing me to go on the podcast as well. So hopefully both of those people will allow, or not, they'll have the recordings online that I can link them to on the website, iamsaltlake.com. So if you're a first-time listener, go on to the iamsaltlake.com. That will link you up with all the previous episodes of the podcast that you can download and put on your iPhone or your iPod or your whatever MP3 player you're doing. That'll also connect you with iTunes, so you could subscribe to us and leave us a review on there and help us out, as well as Stitcher Radio, where you can find us, as well as many other excellent podcasts. First things first, though, I want to mention my wife's clothing store, Sorry Clementine. This was her first week opened up, and thank you so much, Salt Lake City, for welcoming her with open arms. She is located at 366 South, 500 East, number 104, right downtown Salt Lake in the Ray Building, directly west of Walgreens. Seriously, help her out. She's helped the podcast out by allowing me to do many of my recordings there. Her phone number is 801-201-6393, as well as sorryclementine.com. You can find her on Facebook at facebook.com/sorryclementine. Become a fan. Seriously, check out what she's got going on. She just recently had two other local artists bring in their jewelry. She brought Peach Treats in, if you remember her from episode 5 when we sat down and talked to Tiff, as well as another local craft artist, Easily Amused. Not as familiar with her work, so maybe I could convince her to come on the podcast as well. So again, check out Sorry Clementine, 366 South, 500 East, right downtown Salt Lake. Her hours are 11 to 7 during the week, as well as Saturday. She is closed Sunday and Tuesday right now. So check her out and say hello to my wife for me when you go in and visit her. Tell her you heard her on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. So seriously, this podcast has led me to some amazing individuals, and finding out their stories has been really awesome. The feedback from you guys have been really awesome. Salt Lake City, thank you so much for allowing me to come into your earbuds and tell you some different stories of people making a difference here in the Salt Lake City area. And this conversation I had with Steve Auerbach over at musicgarage.org, seriously, what he is doing with the youth in the area is really, really awesome. You could check out his place over the Music Garage. They're over right by right by Costco there on 17th South. I'm going to put all the information at iamsaltlake.com, episode 14, musicgarage.org. So click on the links over there and check them out on Facebook as well as Twitter. Check them out. Go over there. They're doing an event on November 17th. Check them out and support them. He really is doing really some really awesome stuff here in Salt Lake, and he's really got quite the history in music, as you'll find out in this conversation. It was a really fun conversation. It got really fun when we brought up the Zephyr Club. For those of you old school music hounds here in Salt Lake City, you remember the Zephyr Club. It was a fun conversation that we had with Steve. It is a little bit longer than some of the conversations that I have here on the I Am Salt Lake podcast, but that's the beautiful thing about a podcast, is that you can pause it when you need to and step away and come on back. So seriously, thank you very much, Steve. Support the local Salt Lake City arts market, all the arts. I mean, it really makes everybody's day here in Salt Lake when you support them. And thank you very much, Christian Coleman and the Blues End Band, for providing the music for the podcast. You could check them out. They're playing at Fats Grill on Friday over there at Fats Grill in Sugar House. Christian's Coleman and the Blues End Band. Cannot thank you enough for providing the music for the podcast. So anyways, again, my name is Chris Hollifield. Thank you for tuning in, the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I'd love to hear any feedback that you guys have at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. I'm going to stop rambling now and jump right into the conversation I had with Steve over at the musicgarage.org. Thank you so much, Salt Lake City, for the continual support. If you like what I'm doing, feel free to hit that donate button and toss over $1 or $2. Thank you very much. We're here at the Music Garage. Do you go by the musicgarage.org or just the Music Garage?
We're at musicgarage.org.
Excellent. And I'm talking to Steve Auerbach. And why don't you kind of just give us a little bit of history? Tell us how you kind of got involved with music, the whole music industry in general.
I'm from a musical family in New York.
Okay.
And was raised around a lot of music. My dad, I thought all dads had lots and lots of records, but my dad had lots and lots of records. And then I found out, of course, that he played a musical instrument. And then my mother played a musical instrument. And then my mother's parents played musical instruments. And then I went with my mother's father, my grandfather, to his work, where he was the concert master at the Broadway Theater in Manhattan. And I got to watch the Broadway shows from the orchestra pit and meet all the musicians. And wow, what a world. Yeah. And it was odd to me that other people's grandparents and parents didn't play music. And I realized that, they're musicians. Now, my grandfather, who like most grandfathers did like little magic tricks, would make coins come out of your ear and things disappear and, a little sleight of hand like grandfathers can do. I knew that he played the fiddle and I knew what magic was.
Yeah.
I was a little boy, about 5, and I thought he was a magician, not a musician. I didn't know the difference between the two. So when he first took me to work, I went into the basement of the theater, and we're walking through, and he takes me to the locker room and says, "Stevie, these are all the musicians." And I heard, "Stevie, these are all the magicians." And I was like, cool. So musicians, from the first time I ever knew what one looked like,
yeah,
they were guys with musical instruments who did magic.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of music and magic going together came from my grandfather that way. Because I would go to the musicians and I would say, and he was like their boss too. So like I would go to them and I'd say, "Hey, mister, can you do a trick for me?" And they'd look like, "What the hell?" And they're like, the guy would explain to each other.
Yeah.
And the next week they'd show up with some novelty item that they bought at a novelty shop, something that made something disappear. Put your coin in this bag and it'll disappear or something. I'd be like, wow, that's so cool. And they did it because I was the boss's grandson. So it was a really cool experience. As I got older, I got into my dad's record collection. And my dad was a horn player when he was in the Air Force and when he was younger, and he had a clarinet, and I got that from him. But anyway, the way music got into my life was through my family. My mother was a recitalist. Her mother was a recitalist. Her father was the concert master at the Broadway. And the two of them traveled around the East Coast of the United States playing as a sort of famous couple.
Wow.
Yeah, they were pretty cool. My grandfather had polio, so his legs were not developed, and he had crutches. So when he would stand and balance himself on his crutches, and people were like, like in the 1920s or whatever, when he was a young man and he would play, a concert hall, people would just completely freak out. They'd be just like, what is this cripple doing on a concert stage? And then he would like get up out of his chair, leave the crutches, and then stand on his own two legs, so to speak. And it was like, music is a miracle. So music is magic.
Yeah.
Right?
So,
in so many ways.
So did you start taking any music lessons at a young age? Or no?
I took clarinet in school, in band. And then I took guitar when I thought it'd be cooler than the clarinet. And I was a terrible guitar player. And then my mother, of course, played piano, and there was a piano around, and I started listening to my dad's records. And I was listening to a lot of music that had synthesizers on it and keyboards, and I was like, that's what I want to do. When I discovered Rick Wakeman from Yes and Chick Corea and all these guys playing jazz and stuff and big prog rock with synthesizers and having orchestras at their fingertips, I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that became the instrument for me. So I went to my jazz director in high school, and I asked him, he was directing the band kind of Count Basie style, which is like, playing the piano and leading the band at the same time. And so that became something of a pitch for me to him. I pitched to him that I take over playing the piano, and that he'd just run the band and make his job easier. He's like, well, that sounds cool. Can you play? And I said, well, I can do this. And he said, okay. So he gave me a practice room key, which was huge power.
Yeah.
I had the keys to a practice room. And I was like his little pet project to get me to play jazz piano.
And how old were you at this time?
15.
About 15 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
16 maybe. And so I wasn't very good. And I've never been a great musician. I've always just had great timing and the right skills for a job. But he gave me the keys to the practice room, and then all my friends and I would hang out after school for hours until the janitor told us we had to leave because we had a place to play. And we were already all at school. So no one had to take a bus. No one had to walk. No one had to get a train. No one had to get a lift. You just, stayed after school.
Yeah.
And the jams were, unbelievable. We had kids. It was a 12 by 12 practice room. I literally had kids piled on top of the piano. With guitar amps and, crap piled on top of each other. And the whole band would be in there just piled on top because the only place we could go was up. And so it was a great experience. In our high school, because of this kind of advocacy, and also sort of the timing in American music history, we were just at a place where all these young musicians who became famous ended up being. So my high school produced Atlantic Star, who were an 80s R&B. I graduated high school in 78, so they were an 80s R&B act. They had hits, I'll Be Loving You for Always. They're like elevator music.
Yeah.
It's just like horrible 80s, drool. But but they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
And they had a real career. And they were on A&M Records, and they moved to Los Angeles. My high school jazz bassist was a kid named Mark Platty. Mark was a great bassist, good musician, played guitar too, and great kid. And he ends up being a great producer in New York now. He's produced remixes for Prince. He toured with David Bowie. I mean, the guy's like a badass, and he's like another one of our high school kids. And this other kid, Chris Proctor, went on to become a record producer. I mean, and this whole generation, not even generation, just these couple of years of kids that went to school in the late 70s, mid to late 70s at this high school in New York, had this jazz director who was an amazing guy. His name was Bill Ellington. And he was in a seminal jazz group called the Latin Jazz Quartet. And he's just an incredibly badass musician and a sweetheart of a guy who gave us all great opportunities.
Do you think he inspired you to basically go on with music then, I guess?
Not only that, but he inspires me every day that I work with kids today.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the work that I'm doing today isn't just with kids, but that's a little bit of the background.
Yeah. So anyway,
there's a long answer.
Yeah,
sorry.
No. Seriously, I love to hear it all. I love to hear stories. So you went from New York to L.A., correct? Is that
I did, yeah.
And then what did you started producing music?
No,
or
well,
what
that
did
didn't
you
all
do?
happen like that. So okay. So in New York got very dangerous in the late 70s.
Okay.
There were a lot of weapons, lots of drugs, and I was living in a house with a bunch of musicians, and there was nonstop parties. It was just like ridiculous. You'd wake up and there was a party, and you go to sleep and there was a party. I mean, it was like all day long.
Yeah.
And there were hangers-on, fans and this and that, and there were different people always hanging out, and it was just really crazy. And there was like disco, hippies, and punks, and then sort of and that was like the three elements that met at this house, and they didn't mix well.
Yeah.
None of them. So there was some violence, there was a rape, there was some other bullshit, and I got the hell out of there, and I went to. I eventually found my way to Los Angeles. By the time I was 19, I had been playing clubs and recording and doing bands. Been a band leader since I was 17. And so I went to L.A. to become a carpenter. It's like, I'm not ready for school. I knew that I had a lot of maturing to do. I wasn't going to go to university and waste any time or money. I wanted to learn a good work ethic. And so I figured, I'll go be a carpenter, learn how to swing a hammer. That's good work. Had an uncle in the construction business, got a job, got to work, became a carpenter's apprentice. Work changed, interest rates went up, people started building less, and I got laid off, and I did other work. And then ended up in the garment district making neckties in Spanish with like 100 Mexican women, and just loved it. Had a great time. I speak fluent Spanish, just kind of grew up learning it in New York, and took classes, of course, in high school, but, really like Puerto Rican girls, and, it was like way to get through
It worked well for you.
way to not get your butt kicked by the older brother and get some respect from the parents. So, just had an experience of moving to LA and struggling for a while, and then I walked into a Guitar Center, and it was like the second one or something. It was like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And they had the one store on Sunset in Hollywood, which was really seedy and nasty and dirty, and Sunset was pretty nasty. So they built this new store in the San Fernando Valley, which is like the suburbs. But the hills, where all the artists and the producers live, the canyons, and those mountain homes and all that, where all the rich, rock stars lived or whatever, it's right in between Hollywood and the valley. So instead of going to one side of the canyon, they just went to the other.
Okay.
And I didn't know this. So I took the job. I walked in the door and got offered a job. I was just dinking around on the keyboards, playing a bunch of synthesizers, and they were like, "Who do you work for?" And I was like, "I make neckties." They were like, "Well, you should do music." And I said, "Okay." And so I said, "You have a job application? Give me a job in music, and I'll do something in music." And they were like, "Okay, here's an app." And so they hired me. So I ended up being a sales dude there for a couple months, and then they promoted me to the manager of the keyboard department. Worked a lot with the manufacturers, and it was the early 80s. Well, synthesizers were all new technology back then. They weren't digital, they were analog, and then they went hybrid digital with memories, so you could remember the different settings for the different synthesizers. And then they had some digital that came out during the time that I was doing this work. And so during this time, I take this job. I leave the neckties back downtown, which is fine by me. I didn't like thinking in Spanish every day. And so then like every 10th customer was someone infamous or famous.
Really?
Is what it was. Yeah, it was just like right place, right time. It's like my boss would come by and like.
And this was the early 80s, about maybe
83.
80.
Like 80. No, I left New York in 79, so this is like 80, 81.
Okay.
It's like, so, I mean, the scope of the artists available to me was amazing. If I gave you a laundry list of names, it's like everyone from Devo to Dio to Kansas to Tina Marie to Rick James to Smokey Robinson. I worked for everybody.
And here you are, you're having an opportunity to help them out when they're coming
And they would come in, they'd come in.
And did you know who they were? Or
a lot of times, no. I mean, like my boss came over to me. He's like, "See that guy over there? Don't talk to him." I was like, "Why not? He's a customer." It's like, "That's Eddie Van Halen." I was like,
"What?"
So like, what do you mean don't talk to him? And so he ended up talking to me.
Yeah.
And I sold him the OBXA synthesizer he used on Jump, So I sold him that synthesizer, And then he called me, and he had me come to the house and help him program it. And so it's like, this became my career. And I was like, I have the coolest job in town. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. They paid me double, triple scale, whatever I wanted.
The musicians.
The producers and musicians, they paid me whatever I wanted because it was a little bit of a scam. Manufacturers would make an instrument, right? And they were all competing for space. Like this was a huge competition. There were like 20 or 30 synthesizer companies back then. It was huge. And they were vicious competitive. They were all coming up with really cool stuff. And everyone had their own way of doing things. And I knew all the theory behind it because I just knew it from when I was a kid. I was a geek over it. So I would program all the synthesizers to make them sound the best.
Yeah.
Well, the artists they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know that it had my sounds on the keyboard. So they would get the one in the box back to the house or the studio, wherever they were doing their music, and they'd be like, this thing sounds like crap.
Yeah.
And they'd call me up. They'd say, how come it sounds like crap? I said, oh, well, I tweaked them all at the store. He says, well, you need to come down here and tweak ours. This thing sounds crappy. We need the sound to do this. And I would go down and I would twist all the knobs for them and make their sounds for them, and they would have their time. So a lot of times it would be like they recorded with a sound already, and they'd call me at like 2 a.m. or something, like, sorry to bother you so late, but, we had your number, and, we're told that you're the guy we need to talk to. This keyboard sounds like crap. We're trying to record it and get it to sound right. Can you come down here and help us? And I'd be like, sure. So I'd go down there and be like me and Rick James and then some engineer, and we're like sitting there listening to the tracks, and they're like, can you fix this sound? I'd be like, do the thing.
Yeah.
And then they'd go, that sounds great. They said, can you play this part? And
They
I was
asked you this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I can cop that bass line, or I can play that part. They're
Yeah.
like, well, why don't you try it? And I go, play the part. And so I ended up playing on all these really famous records, and no one knows it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. They paid cash. They paid big money. I mean, they were paying me, I was 21 years old, and they were paying me like 60, 80, like $100 an hour.
Which is amazing money. I mean, now, so it's amazing money.
Like $200, it would be like $200-$300 an hour back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were paying me like psychiatric rates. Like I was a doctor or something.
Okay.
They were paying me double or triple the scale. I think like scale was like $30 an hour. So some guys were paying me like $90 an hour. That's what I was getting. But it was great money for a kid. I mean, I was single. I was having a lot of fun. And so I just continued doing this for years. And I got hired right off the sales floor by a competitor. He walked in, and I had changed my name to Steve Bach instead of Steve Auerbach. And so I changed my name. I was like Steve Bach in the industry, and I had like, a DBA and a bank account set up, and my business card said Steve Bach, and that's how I got a lot of work. And then they hooked me up, man. It was a good time. I was like, I was busy,
So did you ever go to school for any of this?
No.
Never...
I hadn't been. No, I was a spaz in school. I barely got out of high school. And I was not a very nice child. I was a troubled youth.
Yeah.
I had a lot of problems, and they didn't discontinue. They just got transferred to California. They all continued in California. I was making more money, and I was successful, but I had lots of drug problems and stuff, and just went off the deep end when they started smoking cocaine, crack.
Yeah.
It's just like I went through $60,000 in 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was just unbelievable. So I literally woke up one day and had no money, no friends, and no dope. And I was just like, this sucks. So I called my mom, and I told her, I said, I've had a lot of success, but I'm having a lot of problems, and I don't know, there must be something really wrong with me. And why would I do this to myself?
Yeah.
And, back then, they didn't even acknowledge that cocaine was addictive, clinically.
Yeah.
It was like, and the crack epidemic I was on the cutting edge of substance abuse. There was no crack epidemic. Crack wasn't even in the American vocabulary. They called it freebase back then. And so 4 months, but it was ruinous. ruinous, $60,000.
Wow.
So it's like, $700-800 a day, habit. And so, but I was making a lot of juice. But then what happened was that the quality of my work and the substance abuse increased. And I was hanging out with dangerous people, not hanging out with my friends or family. And I became more and more isolated and distant and messed up. And I woke up one day, like I said, with no money and no dope and no friends. And I just called my mom and I said, I've got this problem. Can you help me? She's like, yeah, get on a plane. So I flew to New York, had an interview with this lady that founded Odyssey House. And after the interview, she said, okay, you're getting on a plane in the morning, you're going to Utah. I said, where?
You're like, where? And you didn't know anybody
It's like
in Utah.
mountains and Mormons. Yeah, it's like mountains and Mormons. Sounds great to me. As long as there's no crack there, I'm fine. We didn't even call it crack. As long as there's no cocaine there, I'm fine. So, and then I get here and I get into this residential treatment program, and I did that, and it was a great episode. It was very long. It was 20 months of my life. But I look back on it with a lot of thankfulness.
But you didn't know anybody in Salt Lake or
no,
Utah
goodness,
or anything.
No.
Yeah.
I came here, and literally the guy that was picking me up at the airport and I just walked right by each other. And only because I saw, like, his jacket was open, and I saw an SS and OU on his, so his Odyssey House.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
I saw that on his T-shirt. It was like, Odyssey House? He's like, oh, you're Steve? Sorry I'm late.
Yeah.
It's like, thank goodness I wasn't like on parole or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, I guess I would have been accompanied if I had been. Yeah. But anyway, I really didn't know what was wrong with me. And of course, I just stopped the day that I stopped.
Yeah.
I didn't like hem and haw about it. I didn't have any drugs. I didn't have any money, so I stopped. I slept it off, as they say, And so the next day, I'm at this Odyssey House thing. Basically, I flew out to Salt Lake, and I get here, and I start a new life as a pleb, or whatever they call it, level 1, not even pre-treatment at Odyssey House, where I have to like scrub floors and do this whole thing, and like really got humbled, and it was really good for my big freaking ego.
Yeah.
And so that's when I started my life here, and did that, and then had enough money for, got a job, had enough money for pants and shirt, and became a waiter. And then had enough money for an apartment, got an apartment, had a girlfriend, and this and that, and started my new life here.
And so let's fast forward a little bit then.
Yeah.
Into the music garage.
Sure.
What got you to the music garage?
All right. Well, I'll sort of tell the story in fast motion.
Okay.
For listeners.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So during the course of the next 20 some odd years.
Okay. Oh, so they're okay.
Yeah. So this was a long time ago. Yeah. And so not to just skim over it, but
no,
to skim over
no,
it.
No.
I'll skim over it.
Yeah.
We can skim.
No.
Cool.
No, I'm enjoying your story.
Okay. Well, okay. So here's the deal. I get to Salt Lake. I start my life over. I'm doing, and this isn't necessarily about me. It's meant to be about Music Garage, but you wanted to know about me.
No, I want to know all about Steve. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, all right. So it's about me for another minute. Here we go. So, start in Salt Lake. And I start waiting tables, and then one of my best customers is like, "Oh, you used to be in music. You're such a great guy. Come have a radio show. I own a radio station." I was like, "Really? Okay." Get a job doing radio.
And what radio station was that then?
K-Bear.
K-Bear, okay.
Yeah, so I started doing rock and roll radio part-time while waiting tables. I have 2 jobs. And then there's not enough money to make ends meet, so I get a 3rd job driving a truck. And then I'm like spinning all these plates, having like 3 or 4 jobs, trying to make ends meet and, live the lifestyle that I'd like to live. And I just realized, something? I should just go get an education. Because I'm waiting tables with all these kids, all these cute girls who are in school. It was like, I could do that. I'm 27. They're 22. Big deal. Or they're 18 or whatever. Go to school. So I matriculated to the U. And then on doing that, I got another part-time job because I had discovered that the composer in residence at the University of Utah was this world-famous electronic music composer named Vladimir Usichevsky. And he gave me a job, a sense of belonging in the music department, and I started driving less truck, waiting less tables, doing more university, full-time student, and then got some grants and this and that, and then tried to be a musician and realized, something, I'm more of a producer type organizer person. I'm not going to be a career musician. I'm not going to stay in the music department. I declared psychology as my major. And as I'm going through my undergraduate studies, I get a letter from the executive that was a recommendation from the executive director of the Odyssey House that I should go into this track of study for being a drug and alcohol counselor. And so I decided to do that at the Graduate School of Social Work, go through that track of study and get a job, and had a career in social work for like 10 years. And very, very proud of that work. Kept thousands of people out of prison by virtue of the fact that I could just interview them and get them to be straight with me and try to tell the judge what they should be doing. And worked with a clinical team that I hired, and just had a great experience. It was fantastic. So did social work for 10 years, got burned out on that, and started playing music again, just in a bunch of cover bands that played like 150 gigs a year. You know, like every weekend we're out there playing, just playing every week, playing the songs that people want to hear. Mostly older kind of soul and rock and funk hits, you know. And just a working band, just a bunch of working good musicians that know how to play and play well, sing well. And they're guys like, you know, they're all known for different bands now. You know, Danny Weldon, who's with the legendary Porch Pounders. He was in a funk band with me, you know. So anyway, all these different musicians, John Flanders, all these great guys that are sort of like the best players in town. So I was very lucky. I had great bands, and during the course of this, there's this guy that comes along, and he's this Australian fellow, and he's got this booking agency, and he starts booking our band gigs, and he wants to represent us, and then I'm getting burned out on the whole substance abuser thing. You know, I was like, I want to do something else. So basically, I started officing with this guy who was our booking agent for our band, and I became a booking agent for him, and I started working for him, and I let go of the whole social work thing. Actually, like, sold the business to someone else, a social worker, got out of it, and became a booking agent for this Planet Agency, was the name of the company. And so we're doing like weddings in Deer Valley and, you know, corporate events at the Salt Palace and, you know, all kinds of stuff out, Sundance Institute, this and that, all kinds of different events, you know. And, you know, and it was fun. You know, I got to know all these different bands in town, you know, and all the bands come and, you know, they wanted some help with stuff and they wanted more work and, you know, they wanted to improve their wages and that kind of thing. And we kind of got their wages up a little bit. I would say that overall the music scene was healthier back then in the 90s than it is today. Musicians are making less and doing more than they did back then, which is sad. But, you know, the whole situation has changed here. And it's not just about venues. It's not just about the Zephyr Club being gone or the Port of Call being gone. It's about, like, the whole scene just changing. Because there's no one really advocating. I mean, there's a union here.
Yeah.
But, like, when you put a booking agent in front of people, like a sales rep, that has value, you know. But the bands didn't want to pay for it. And that's fine. And I get that. And they just, like, they wanted to pay it for if you got them extra work that they weren't already getting. But they wouldn't buck up and say, you know something, we want you to represent us. Here's 10% of all our business or 15% of all of our business. Please join our team and be part of the band, you know. And the value of that partnership is something that doesn't really work in this market because of the volume. You know, musicians can't make quite enough money to rationalize that too well. Some can, but not all. So I did for years I stayed with Planet Agency, did that. It was going really great. And I did an event at Liberty Park. It was the Arrow Fest for Simmons Media, and they have 103.5 The Arrow. Yeah. And I produced the stage for them. I booked the bands, I did the tech stuff, I had the sound company I hired, the lighting company, and all this. And after the show, the lighting designer comes to me and he says, do you have a booking agency? He says, man, I really like working with you. You did a great job today. I said, well, thanks. He says, my brother's got a band. I'm going to have him give me a call. And I was like, okay, let me get your card. He says, and I get this package in the mail from his brother. And everybody's brother's got a band, right? Well, his band had Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction in it.
Oh, wow.
Mike Watt from Firehose and now the Stooges. A horn player from Snoop Dogg. A guy on clarinet, cyber clarinet, that's like the first engineer for Snoop. I mean, it was like this all-star. Nels Klein from Wilco on guitar.
So what band was this in?
It's called Banyan.
Oh, no, yeah.
Banyan, like the tree. And Banyan was this sort of like Miles Davis Bitches Brew influenced band that was sort of psychedelic too.
Yeah.
So it was like this crazy side project with Stephen Perkins and all of his buddies.
Huh.
And Perkins being the drummer from Jane's Addiction and Porno for Pyros.
Yeah.
And so that's this kid's brother's band. I'm like, cool. So I talked to Perkins, and he interviews me. You know, Willie came out here, the horn player, and he interviews me, and he's like, we love you, we love you, this is great, because his brother lived here. He was coming out here to visit. So he goes back to L.A., tells Perkins about me. Perkins calls me, gets me on the phone, and we start talking. He's like, well, dude, Willie loves you. You know, Fred loves you. He says, but I don't know you. And he says, I need a reference. I said, well, here are all my old clients. And I went down a laundry list of all my old clients. He's like, well, I've heard of all those people, but I don't have their phone numbers. And it's been so long, I didn't either. Yeah. He said, and I finally said someone's name, and it was this guy, Ike Willis. They said, Ike Willis, we know Ike. And Ike was with Frank Zappa. And so, well, he's an old client, an old friend of mine. I said, tell him I said hi, and he'll give me a great reference, I'm sure, which he did. And then Ike calls me. And this is how the whole Music Rush thing started. So it's starting to wind up here.
No, you're fine. I'm enjoying the story.
So I'm glad. Well, so we're so I'm like representing this band, and they're on a label. You know, they got label support for the tour. It's really cool. So I'm really excited about the music and the band and all this and getting everything going. And so I get in touch with Ike, right, who I hadn't talked to in 10 years or so. And Ike's like, you know, not doing so great. His family's in Portland. He's living in L.A. And I was like, you know, dude, get on a plane. Go home. Get the hell out of L.A. It's going to kill you. And go back home, be with your family, and I will call. And and I think I maybe even sent him money, got him airfare or something, but, you know, it wasn't that much, like $150 something. So he goes back to Portland. Long story short, I tell him, look, I had a Frank Zappa tribute band last year, and I would love to play music with the guy on the record, who's you. So why don't you come be in a Frank Zappa tribute band with me, and we'll tour. He's like, okay. So I get these local musicians. They were called Thirsty Alley. Crazy avant-garde band, awesome musicians, amazing players. And so I tell them all, I said, look, I want you guys to be the band with me and this girl that on keyboards, because we need another keyboard player and a female vocalist, another female. They had a female in that group. And I said, okay, I'm going to fly Ike out here, learn this music. It's Frank Zappa music. It's hard. And it's like the hardest, some of the most difficult music to play in the last century. And so, especially rock music. So anyway, they learn the music. I fly Ike out. We do some touring. We have a great time. Everything goes well. And I get a call for a music festival in Germany for Ike. I'm his booking agent, you know, and his manager and producer too at this point, because he didn't have a product. So we get a call to go to Germany for an all Frank Zappa music festival with him as a headliner. And I'm like, dude, you got to have some CDs. You got to have product to sell. You got to go make some juice out of this. This is a good opportunity for you, for your business. He's like, well, all I have is these CDs right here, the last ones, the master and the copy. It's like, give them to me. Give them to me. What are your favorite 15 tracks? Let's come up with a best of for your fans. And we made a compilation. And we got this guy who's a real tech head named Douglas Spotted Eagle, who was living in Stockton, Utah. And Spot is a Native American recording artist and producer. Spotted Eagle had just won a Grammy in 2001 and was the first Native American Grammy. He made history.
Really?
Yeah. Lived here in Utah. He's moved to California now, but so this guy produces this record for me, you know, helps remaster it. We get Sony. We use Sony software to engineer some of it, and he got Sony to do a write-up about it, about the work that we did. And anyway, and we're off to Germany. CD boxes in the ship in the cargo. Get to Germany, play the festival. Had an Italian band come meet us. He played one day with an American band, one with an Italian band, because I had him going to Europe as well with these Italian boys and playing with them. So I was working with these teenagers in Torino, Italy, who played Frank Zappa music. Super funny side story, probably worth putting on the recording, so I'll just say it.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting in my house one day. Ike is staying with me. We're rehearsing. We had like the first rehearsals for what was called Chunga's Revenge. That was the name of the band. It was Ike Willis and Chunga's Revenge. And Chunga's Revenge being a famous Zappa recording. Anyway, so we're sitting there. The mail comes, and my housemate says, "Steve, you got something in the mail, package from Italy." I'm like, oh, my God. And it was these boys. It was their recording of them singing and playing Frank Zappa music in Italian.
Wow.
So we put it on the CD player, and the two of us just completely fall off the furniture onto the floor, rolling around laughing. It was so funny. So I said to Ike, for like 3 years, for 3 years I had been sending Ike to Italy before this ever happened, right? So we were 3 years into me taking over the agency, 3 years into me working with these kind of rock star sidemen guys. You know, I had the Banyan guy, the Jane's Addiction guy, with his all-star crew. Then I had Ike Willis, and then I had these guys from the P-Funk All-Stars from George Clinton. And they were out of Detroit, and they found me. So I had these kind of rock star dude, sidemen guys, you know, and they're doing their tours and stuff, and doing a lot of stuff with Ike. Things are going really well. We go to Germany, have a great trip. They rebook Ike the next year. This is 2003. They rebook Ike. I send him out. I couldn't go. He comes back, and he says, "Oh, you're getting a call from this guy named Paul Green." He had these kids there. They played Frank Zappa music. They were amazing. I was like, that's cool. I was doing different things at this time, though. I had put the booking agency on the back burner. I had dropped all the local acts and just represented the 3 nationals and stopped working with local musicians and took a job. I could not leave to go to Germany. I was really focused on my career. It was time for me to make some money. I was in my 40s. I was like, this is my opportunity to really make some more juice and put some money in the bank. And so this guy, Paul Green, calls me out of the blue. Says, "Hey, I've got these kids, and they're awesome, and we've got these schools back east. I've got 3 branches open in the Philadelphia area. And, man, Ike just speaks really highly of you, and I need some help with my business and developing it." I was like, "Well, that sounds great, but I'm busy." I said, "However, let's be friendly. And if I can help you, if you're ever coming out this way on a tour or something, and you want to get some shows in Salt Lake, I'll hook you up, man. I know everybody here." And the guy's like, "Okay, cool. And likewise, if you're ever coming to Philadelphia, let me know." And this is like August, right after they got back from this festival. Well, by November, it was my birthday. I'm in Philadelphia. Ike is playing at the North Star Bar in Philly, and Paul Green's kids are opening for him. And I'm like, okay, it's my birthday, da-da-da, da-da-da. And I had a meeting that afternoon with a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer who wanted representation. And I looked at him, and I looked at Ike, and I looked at all these guys, and not to put them all in a category, but they're all older. They all, not necessarily has-beens or anything, but they're like, they've had their careers. Like Ike used to say, he used to joke about himself, you don't know who I used to be. You know, it's like, and he would joke because people wouldn't know who he used to be, you know. And so, and of course the contradiction being he's still the same guy. But the point is that his life had changed radically since Frank died, and, you know, all this other stuff. So I really was not sure I wanted get another like old rock star type dude, you know, the guy in his 50s or 60s or 70s or whatever he is, you know. It's just like, I'll go check out these kids. You know, plus they're opening for my guy. And actually I was done doing business with Ike at this point. I was too busy. I didn't like him as a client anymore for whatever reasons. And I wanted to just kind of let that business go. The whole evening was pivotal. Going to this bar, and it's just a row bar with a bunch of seats. And there's all these like rock and roll toughs in there. I was like, tattooed people and this and that. I was like, you guys are kind of rock and roll for a kid thing. What's going on here? So I go down the end of the bar, and that's where the entrance of the venue was. I was like, okay, I'm here to see so-and-so. Okay, come on in. And I go into the venue area, stage, lights, sound, and kids and families.
How old are the kids, probably?
They're like 12 and 15 or whatever, and 16. You know, they're teenagers. What? So I walk into the place, and like, there's my guy, Ike, this guy, Paul Green, he introduces me, and like, okay, the kids play, and I'm like, my jaw was on the floor the whole night. I mean, I left there with a dry mouth because I don't think my mouth closed the whole time I was there. I was like stunned. Show ends, I go down and I talk to Paul. I said, dude, I got another day in Philly. You got to show me how you do this. Where's your shop? Where do you do this? He says, you come by and visit. I was hooked. I meet the kids, I meet the parents, I meet the families. I'm like, it's the coolest thing ever. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And this is 2003. So I go back to Salt Lake and I tell the guy, I said, look, I've got a career, I've got a job, I want to help you. I don't have a lot of time, but I will help you, and I'm a big fan. He says, great, Steve, thanks. Calls me in April, says, we're coming out in August. So they come out, they do their, now it's going to speed up. So they do their tour.
Oh, you're fine.
They come out, they have family.
The kids do the tour.
The kids come on tour with Paul Green
and
parents as chaperones.
And they're
tour
blowing
bus.
you away.
They're in a tour bus.
Okay, yeah.
And they're traveling like around the country.
Wow.
Like what I did for my summer vacation. How cool is this, right? So they're like, I toured with a rock band, right? So these are his all-star kids, the best kids that he's got in the 4 schools or whatever he has by then, right? So they come out. I had a couple boys stay at my place. They stayed up in Sugar House at the hotel there. We played at the Sugar Beats venue that was in Sugar House back then. It's no longer there. And they did a double show there. They did a brown bag downtown. They blew people away. They blew me away. They go back to Philly. They call me up, and Paul says, of all the cities and all the people we met during the 2 weeks or whatever we were touring, said, we love Salt Lake, and we love you, and we want to open schools there. Will you work for us? And I said, make me an offer. So they flew me out, made me an offer, and I became their first national hire in their national expansion. They now have 80 schools.
And this is the School of Rock?
School of Rock.
Okay.
Right. And so this is the original thing. It was before Jack Black, before any of that movie stuff. And there's actually a documentary about the guy called Rock School. It's fascinating.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, he yells and screams at children. It's great.
Okay, how easy is the film to get? I mean, if anybody listening...
I think you can get it up at Blockbuster.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, like in the special interest section.
And say the name of it again, Warren?
Rock School.
Rock School. Mm-hmm. Excellent. I'll have to...
And it was shot before School of Rock with Jack Black, but they didn't get into distribution until after. And Paul was going to sue Paramount. He's like, I'll sue those bastards. And there's good reason. I mean, there's an inside story to that. The inside story is really quickly, Paramount is owned by Viacom. They also own VH1 and MTV. VH1 had sent a reality TV show crew to shoot for 2 weeks at School of Rock Philly with Paul. They left, and he never heard from him again. And then 7 months later, a narrative film with a character that's a lot like him.
School of Rock.
Is in this School of Rock movie, right. So he's like, I'll sue the bastards, talks to his lawyers, and they're like, no, you won't. You don't have enough money for that. He said, just ride their coattails to the bank. And that's exactly what he did. So when he hired me, we had Sundance coming up in January. It was 2004. I got my contract in December. They had everything set up with screening times for the film at Sundance as an independent documentary. And they said, cool, we're going to open Salt Lake. You're going to announce it at the festival, and you'll have more kids than you'll ever want. And I'm like, okay. And we're going to have a success on our hands. So, and they told me what their plan was, to build it to 50 schools in 5 years and then sell it to Sylvan Learning Centers. That's exactly what they told me their plan was. That's exactly what they did. And so I opened schools for them. We started with Salt Lake. My responsibility was to open 2 schools. I opened 4. Opened Salt Lake, Sandy, Park City, and Denver. And I was supervising Austin, Texas as well. I was training people and building cultures and communities in each location. And so the idea was to maintain a healthy culture internally so that when people walked in the door, they just got all this love and they were just like, this is the place to be. How can you not want to get kids, got rock, got love? Great, let's do it. So it was a huge success. And we enrolled 230 kids by the end of my 3 years in just in Salt Lake, Sandy, and Park City. Park City had a cap on it because it was at a school as an after-school program. It was the first contract like that. Sandy was growing slowly, rapidly, actually, and Salt Lake was growing. And they flew out in January of 2008, and they had a check in one hand and a contract in the other. And they said, thank you very much. here's your severance check, and here's a separation agreement with a non-compete in it. We've got to get rid of your position, got to downsize, got to close one of the schools, maybe 2, and consolidate everything to Sandy because we're getting ready to sell the company.
Wow.
And so I looked at the check, and I was really pissed.
Yeah,
It was
I can
not
imagine.
big enough.
Yeah.
I also was really happy with my work and hadn't really gotten my own life yet. I had like 3 years of just like workaholism. And so I said, you guys need to add another 0 to this check or else I'm going to compete with you. And they came up with some more money. And so, but I didn't accept the agreement and sign off on it, so they didn't know if they could trust me. So there was no going away party. Absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, I have all these families that are like my surrogate family here. I don't have my own kids. I have my own life, but these kids, after 3 years, had become my life. So their parents, they all became like my surrogate families. You know, I had like some holiday dinners with them. I became like one of the family, and I didn't get to say goodbye. So that was really wrenching for me. It was very hard. And while we worked out the details of this money nonsense. But it all worked out. I ended up saying goodbye to people in my own way. And I had to take 18 months off from kids and rock. That was our separation agreement. So this is in May of 2008. Actually, February 2008. What's in the air? The smell of a subprime mortgage crisis. What's in the air? Increasing unemployment. Oh my gosh, I'm in Utah. What am I going to do? I just taken this left turn in my career path from doing IT stuff, multimedia IT stuff, to doing kids and rock. My resume sucks. I can't get a job with this resume. So I had a house, I had a payment, and I was like, okay, I've got to get out from under this house first. Thank God my agent sold it in 20 days.
Awesome.
Just before the value went way down, like half.
Yeah.
Like half. Like the house was like worth half what I paid for it within like a month. So, and I made money. So here I am, no job, money in the bank, everything's going great. And I started buying equipment and putting a studio in a little cottage that I rented in Holiday, just a little quiet little place out in the mountains and near Holiday Village. So I was kind of like near people, but it felt really isolated. Anyway, so I get this little thing and this little studio, put it together and did some traveling, took some time off. And my dad ran out of money. He was aging and needed money, so I gave him a whole bunch of money. I felt really good about that, but also decreased my resources. And did a TV commercial, started doing TV commercials.
How'd you get hooked up with that?
I knew a creative director. He knew me, and he just like asked me, if I would do it. He said, Steve, I've got a really weird request for music for a commercial. He says, the spot is, I need a anti-tobacco superhero theme song that's not a parody. I said, I'm your man. I mean, like, how do you roll your eyes at that?
Yeah.
No, it was such a fun challenge. It was called Smoker Man, and it ran for 2 years. And it was like, Smoker Man. It was like this little G.I. Joe tiled doll that like boys would play with, and that he had a cigarette in his mouth and like a cape and like a no smoking thing. Anyway, he would fail at everything that he did. I mean, in one episode of these 30-second spots, the world actually blows up and ends because he smokes.
Wow.
Because he couldn't do things fast enough. He had lost his superpower.
Yeah.
Smoker Man. So, and then the phone didn't ring. So I did a great commercial, TV commercial music, won a couple of awards, and they only called me because I'm not the man. And my friend didn't have more work for me, And so it wasn't my skill set. So I was like, oh, man, what am I going to do? And I'm not making money on the studio and this and that. And then next thing you know, a couple part-time jobs later, I'm running out of money. 18 months later, non-compete is expiring. Called up the Park City School District and I said, look, and in the meantime, all of this was like, I had these ideas about kids and music and my experience at School of Rock, because I had to look back on it. It was intense, dude. I mean, you're talking like, I produced, at School of Rock, I did almost 400 kids and 200 shows. I mean, you're talking like lots and lots of productivity with kids. So I became like we got a rep, dude. I was like one of the top people in the country at this stuff. And I had chops. I was good at it. And my staff was good at it. And I had trained them really well. So I knew how to do this and how to duplicate it and all this. But there are things about School of Rock that I just didn't like. And so they're philosophical things. But the cool thing about School of Rock is that the original philosophy with Paul Green, before he sold it and all this, and it kind of like changed a little bit, was brilliant.
Yeah.
Just brilliant.
But you had your own ideas that you wanted.
But I had my ideas
that
that I had learned from, based on my experience with my kids here in Utah and kids in general. And so I came up with this idea for Music Garage. And the idea of Music Garage was a musician's resource center where bands could rehearse, kids could train, and they could play shows at our own venue opening for these local rock bands. And on occasion, maybe have the place be nice enough that national acts would come by and use it, and the kids could meet them or maybe even learn their songs and jam with them or something.
Which national acts have come here, correct?
And they have. Yeah. So the vision of what I wanted to do, well, I had to start someplace.
Yeah.
So where do you start? I had no money. I'm unemployed. I'm out of cash. You know what I mean? It's like, it really, things weren't going well at this point.
Yeah.
Things had gone downhill from 2008, and by this time, it's already like, late 2009. So I called up my friends at the Park City School District, and I said, I have an idea. Will you do an after school, like a summer camp with me? It was August of 2009. They said, sure, we'll do a summer camp with you. What do you need? So we did the summer camp, and it sucked. The kids were lazy, whatever, but it was fun. It was me getting my feet wet again with kids. And they decided, it went great. From an administrative point of view, they had a lot of enrollment and it went well. And I was like, okay, great. Let's do an after school program. So we did it. And, I don't know what to say. I love kids. And they're all delightful in their own way to me. But these children were not nice to each other.
Really?
Yeah. And I'd never seen this before. I'd never seen cruelty in a music program. I'd never seen disrespect. And I don't know if it was the Park City kids. I don't want to blame them for their affluence or anything, but it was just, I did not want to be there. I did not want to work with these kids. I did not like the drama that was going on.
There was like a tension.
There was something going on. Yeah, there was.
Tension.
Oh, there was a 14-year-old girl that tells me she got pushed by her locker by this kid that plays guitar that doesn't like her.
Wow.
And I was just like,
And this is Park City.
Yep. And
wow.
I just said, after 2 seasons of trying, and they sucked. They didn't work hard. They were lazy. They just were cavalier. They were grandiose. And not all of them. Some of them were delightful. But I just cut it loose. And at the same time, I came up with a plan for Salt Lake. Because during this period, I was like, I wanted to open Salt Lake, but I didn't know what I was going to do. So I was really just trying to create a part-time job for myself, but also experiment with some ideas that I had about doing Music Garage, because Music Garage is not a music school. There's no one teaching them lessons. See, okay, so School of Rock, what are the lessons I got out of School of Rock? And why I started Music Garage? Number one. When I first opened School of Rock, I could not hire my friends. Why not? They're your friends. Hire them. Well, I called them up. They're all the best teachers in town with tons of teaching experience. And I said, hey, would you like to come work part-time for me doing this cool project, getting kids to play concerts and teaching lessons? I said, great. What does it pay? $15 an hour. No way, Steve. No way. I bill $25 a half hour. I can't rationalize $15 an hour. You maybe find a college kid to do it, but not me. I said, okay, dude, that's cool. Well, if you ever have any kids that are, good enough that they can play in a band, maybe refer them to us. It's okay. So I couldn't hire any of my friends. I couldn't hire anyone that teaches because no one would take the job. So I hired musicians, working musicians. I won't name names, but a whole crew of local rock stars, right? And some of them were good, and some of them were horrible, and some of them were drug addicts and alcoholics, and some of them were just delightful and awesome, and they're still there to this day. It took, when I started School of Rock, I'm serious, it was like 20 to 30 hires before I found like the 8 people that I could count on to show up for work and do a good job with the kids. And then out of those, there were probably 3 or 4 that, maybe 5, that really were good at it. So that was the first thing. The second thing was my friends, I told, make a referral. When they did, or their students heard about School of Rock, the parents would come with them and walk through the door and say, oh, we're a music school, we're after school, come to our program, it's $300 a month, and that includes 1 lesson a week and 1 rehearsal a week and participation in our shows. And the parents would go, great, but I can't do that in the individual lessons anymore. That's like another $100 a month or something in lessons. So, plus they have a teacher here. So, Billy, we can drop Timmy, your guitar teacher you've been for the last 3 years, right? They're like, yeah, Mom, I want to play in these shows. So merely for the performance aspect of the program, the child ends up dropping their teacher merely for the playing of a show, a recital. So the takeaway was my friends, I couldn't hire them, and they were losing business. 250 kids, 230 kids, times 5 years, let's say. It's been 6 or 7, but let's say 5. At $25, $30 a lesson a week, it's millions of dollars.
Adds up, yeah.
It's millions of dollars. So the music industry in Utah, the teaching industry, which is a multi-million-dollar cottage industry, lost millions of dollars because of something that I did. Well, I felt very, very guilty about that.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to do something with kids and music, it's not going to involve competing with my friends. Now, the truth is, the ones that were my friends that lost students, maybe a few students here and there. But it's the concept, it's the precept, it's the idea of not supporting local musicians who teach and competing with them merely for the performance aspect of a program. Parents won't pay for both. So what do? You just do the rehearsals and the shows. And that's what Music Garage was born on. So when it worked in Park City, because it did, functionally, the kids learned songs, the kids played shows, whether or not they were good or not is a whole matter of opinion. I think they were horrible, but they did stuff.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I got my feet wet again. And during this whole period, I'm thinking, okay, I got to open in Salt Lake, got to open in Salt Lake, got to open in Salt Lake. And I heard about this nonprofit recording studio called Midnight Records on Main Street. And they're part of an arts organization that I'd known about for years called the Utah Arts Alliance, nonprofit. So I went to them and I figured, man, if we were part of a nonprofit, we might be able to get some grants and this and that. How cool would that be for kids that are poor that Uncle Joe teaches them how to play guitar or something? So I ran into the executive director of the Arts Alliance, and they had an art opening there on a gallery stroll night. And so I go down there to the gallery, which is in the front, and the studio's in the back. And I see the executive director and meet the studio guy, and we start talking. And they like, Steve, we want your program here. Whatever you're doing, we want it. And I was like, okay. So I rented a 12 by 12 room, just like I started with in high school.
Yeah.
Put a drum kit in there and then piled kids up.
Wow.
I said, because it was good enough for me and I had a career, it can be good enough for you. You don't need anything more. Right? And you get me. So I would go in there and I had one student I was teaching privately, and somehow or another the timing worked out and I ended up with like 4 kids. That's enough for a band. Come on, get in here, guys. Let's go. So we started with 4 kids in a 12 by 12 room at the Arts Alliance for, I don't know, $200 a month rent or whatever I was paying over there, $300. Actually, I was paying $300. It's a lot. And then this girl, Janie, comes out of nowhere from my friend Cliff, and she's like a singer-songwriter. But she knows how to play guitar, and we needed a bass player. We had 2 guitar players on one song or something, and I was like, give her a bass. Next thing you know, she's a bassist.
Yeah.
She's loving it. So then we expanded to a 13 by 19 room. And then there was all this activity over there. We needed our own space. And then I realized, after I had 12, 14 kids in the program for a year and a half, I realized this is something. It's not big. It's not a job. It's not a living. I basically volunteer to do it. But my goodness, this is something. They're playing shows. They're doing it. And they're not doing lessons. And I'm charging less than half of the competition. It's like $6 an hour. That's what it's based on. $6 to $10 an hour.
So where were they playing shows at then? Where, like
Desert Rocks Music Festival.
Okay.
I mean, like Music Fest. Big. I have connections. People know
Yeah.
me. Yeah. So it's like they trust me because I had the School of Rock kids playing big shows. That was the other thing about School of Rock is that I got them killer gigs.
Wow.
They don't play those gigs anymore because they don't know me. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know, I work really hard for the kids. So now we've got this situation where I've got enough kids. I need a facility. And I'm thinking, well, where are the kids going to play? Kilby Court? Probably not. They don't love cover bands over there. You know, because that's what the kids are doing. They need a place to learn how to train how to do this. So I figured, okay, we need our own venue. We need a couple rooms to rehearse in. And it all just kind of came together. I reached out to musicians in the community, producers, engineers, other people that I'd worked with in the years past, and they all like, you know, some guy gives you an amp, and some guy gives you a guitar, someone else gives you a drum kit, someone else, you know, it's like, it just came together. And it's been absolutely the most difficult work I think I've ever done, and also some of the most rewarding. Certainly difficult in terms of logistics, just spinning a lot of plates with kids and parts and parents and the stage parents and all kinds of stuff. But, you know, overall, it's going really, really well. It's we don't have a lot of kids, never have. I've got 14, 15 kids still.
So what's the most rewarding thing, do you think, from doing all this is?
I had a moment, well, there's a lot of things, but there's this kid named Liam. Liam showed up with his sister. Liam's 10. And he showed up, and, you know, kids, if you give them opportunities,
Yeah.
they actually think they're good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, because like they're on a stage playing the Utah Arts Festival or the Desert Rocks Music Festival, they actually think they're good. And they actually are sort of good,
Yeah.
but they're not as good as they really think they are, right? Now, in the old program, the Paul Green School of Rock model, you tell them they suck. You tell them right to their face, you suck.
They can't be that good, though, for their self-esteem.
It's not good. It's not good. So what you have to do is, and I know that they kind of suck sometimes, and they do too. They know it's not as good as the guy on the record. They know that. But there's a couple of them that do a really great job, and they do it as good as the guy on the record, maybe. So you have to put things in perspective and treat people fairly and with dignity. And so what I do is I just be honest with them. I just say, like, you know, that sounded pretty good. That's doing good. But the moment that I felt like I really had something with some longevity was when Liam walked in. And this wasn't that long ago. I mean, I've been doing this 3 years now. We had our 3rd anniversary just in August. And Liam came in right around that time. And September. And he walks in, he's 10. Stratocaster's as big as he is, man. I'm telling you. The guitar is like out to here on this kid, right? It's huge. But he might be, maybe I shouldn't say this, his parents might listen. He's might be the best guitar player we've ever had in any of the programs.
Well, why is that a bad thing to say?
Because it goes right to their heads.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but Liam, this 10-year-old boy walks in and he plays Alive by Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm still alive, you know, whatever. And he rocked it so hard. Every inflection was like he'd studied the song. And he got it. And he translated the emotion. He wasn't just playing the song. He was playing the shit out of the song. And I was like, and he was owning it. He was like, it's like, not only can I play this and like kind of have a nonchalant attitude about it, he's like a really cool kid.
Yeah.
But he plays it really well. And the other kids went like this because he's like that high. And so the other kids immediately recognized the competition's arrived. He's 10.
Yeah.
But he's going to kick your butt if you don't work hard, And what you pray for in these situations where you're advocating for kids and giving, that value comes to it. And the way the value translates is, I've got to work hard to keep up with that kid. Because that little bugger, if I don't know my parts well or stay in practice, he's going to take my songs from me. And I'll give them to the better player.
And how long has he been with you then? At this?
It's like he says his first season he's finishing
First season,
now.
wow.
Yeah. So he'll play his first show on November 17th. That's our next show, our fall show.
And is that what show is this? What is that open to the public or,
Yeah,
where when is this? Let's hear it.
It's at here at Music Garage, 389 West, 1700 South, and Unit E, and it's open to the public. It's small capacity. But we have like hazers and lights and
wow.
It's like a real rock show.
Yeah,
it's really cool. So and he'll rock some David Bowie. He's doing Ziggy Stardust. I mean, like he's just doing. It's cool. And there's other kids that are awesome too. I mean, I could go on and on about our kids, but it was Liam that made me think. I could have that little guy come in here for the next 7 years. And then I can offer him a job while he's in college. If he goes to the U of U or something, And I was like, that's something. I mean, that's something special. And then Emma, who's this 18-year-old girl, she came to me when she was 16. She's just turning 18 this month. And her family have been great. Her little brother's in the program too. She comes to me and says, Steve, can I just do a volunteer internship here and just help you? And I was like, yeah, I love you. It's like, not only is she smart, good guitar player, sweet kid from a great family, she looked at me and just went you're kind of pulling your hair out here, aren't you? And had enough empathy and love. And also like-mindedness. She loves the program. To want to make it better. And those two things made me think wow. I've been threatening to hire her if I just had enough kids. If I had 50 kids or 100 kids, I wouldn't have to work a day job. I could do this full time.
So how many you have? You said 8 kids?
I have 14.
14 kids.
That's all.
And, I mean, are you always accepting new kids in?
Always.
Oh, okay.
We've got scholarships.
Okay.
We've got, I've got scholarships.
I didn't know if that was capacity or something.
No, I can serve up to probably 150, 200 kids here. Yep. And that's for an average fee of about $150 a month. But we have scholarships and we have sliding fee scale. It's like, I just want to give the gift of rock to kids. I think that rock music is good music. I think that there's a whole lot of shitty rock, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I think that it's music. And music is a very important thing. I mean, there's kids finding a place to belong is the other part. This is like the space you saw downstairs, our venue / rehearsal hall. That's like church to these guys. It's like the culture that we're building is like, are you going to pick that up? That's what I want to see, is that kind of respect and be like, oh, this is our holy ground, sacred ground. Because this is where it happens. And that drum kit isn't yours, and you should treat it better than yours because there's someone else that's playing it after you. It's like this whole set of values that we teach. So I don't teach them how to play. And I teach them how to play together. Yeah. And helping me do that is a world-renowned guitarist who lives in Salt Lake City. His name's Terrence Hansen. And the guy is well-known in Holland, Germany. He's a headliner at festivals. He's really something.
And he helps you here at the...
And he helps me. He's one of the greatest musicians I know or have ever known. And he's a sweet guy, and he volunteers.
Wow.
And he just helps these kids. So, and School of Rock is doing fine. They're down to 80 kids in enrollment. I don't know why that is. There's also lots of other programs that have popped up since I opened School of Rock. So I've created some competition. I've created a lot of jobs for people, and I feel good about that. But the takeaway that I got from School of Rock and what I'm doing now with Music Garage is that we are a musicians resource center, a community with multiple facets. I've got offices here where if there's someone out there that's booking bands and has a talent for booking, I'll hook them up with an office. I'll sponsor them. They don't have to pay me rent. I just want them booking bands. And when I need a booking agent, I'll send them bands. And I'll train them how to be an international booking agent, as I've done it, here in Europe and South America. So I'll help them. If there's someone that's into production, a real production geek that's doing some concerts and is into lighting and is into sound and like wants to be a production manager, I want that person up here. I don't want to be in the production business, tour production or tour management or be a booking agent. I don't want to have any of those jobs, but I will help someone succeed at that and have them be part of our Music Garage family. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 offices up here, and they can be filled with teachers and booking agents or whatever, producers. Whatever.
And do you have any of that going on here now then yet?
Slowly. I've got voice instructor. We had a bass instructor, but he got too busy with work, and he's doing other things right now. But we've got a violin instructor. But most of the established musicians who teach in town, they already have a place to teach, or they go to the people's houses or whatever. I'm looking for college kids. I'm looking for people that want to come in and make some money and make a difference in these kids' lives, and maybe volunteer and help coach, and that kind of thing. If I had 100 kids, I could pay everybody, but I don't. I've got, if they help me grow the thing and I end up with more kids, then I'll have a staff, I don't have a problem with that. But this work is important, and I'll tell you why. We don't teach kids how to play. I said that earlier. We teach them how to play together. We teach them how to be good bandmates. The values that we teach are humility, number one. Basically, be of service to the band. Let the song be your higher power. Be humble to that. Serve the song. Serve the group. It's not about you. When you're on stage for your 16-measure solo during that Led Zeppelin extravaganza or whatever, it's all about you, man. And I will do everything to make the lights look really cool, make sure that the pick guard on your guitar is shiny, and you look good, and you sound good, and you're just a man or girl or boy. But the rest of the time, it's just like you just got to do the work, and serve the band, because you're just a kid playing music, and you're good, but have your moments appropriately.
One of the biggest things that I found interesting, what you mentioned also downstairs when we were talking, is how to get along. So many bands don't know how to get along.
Yeah, and
that's why they break up.
No,
and that really stuck out to me when you mentioned that.
Yeah,
I was like, that's an interesting thing to teach.
Well, look, I was lucky. When I was in LA, my first bandmates were guys that are still bandmates.
Yeah.
And I was 19, they were 17, and it was like Anthony wasn't in the band. He ended up being in the band, but Mike Balzeri, who became Flea like the next year, Hillel Slovak and Jack Irons, and a guy named Alan. And Alan ended up in another band, not the Chili Peppers. He was in a band he's had a couple of bands, Anthem and Queens of the Stone Age and Them Crooked Vultures. He's had some great bands. But the other kids became Red Hot Chili Peppers. And the friendship is what matters. They're always singing about their friends, and they're always singing about their music. And one thing that I've learned is that friendship and musicianship, but friendship really matters in a band. And that if you're young, it becomes your first surrogacy for your family, is your band. And that's who you're going to project on. That's who you're going to take your mommy issues out on, your daddy issues on your brother issues out on, whatever. Those are the people you're going to project all over and give a hard time, and they're going to love you or get you to act right, Yeah. So it's a cool thing to be friends, really good friends with your bandmates. It's really important. So I believe real strongly that friendship and dedication to the moment, to the rehearsal, is really important. And then all the other stuff, the showmanship, the how to win a crowd over, the stage presence, the stage craft, which way to turn, how to upstage, downstage, how to be with people and not be with people on stage, and make yourself stand out and not, and all that stuff comes together later. And frankly, with 14 kids, we've only hit the tip of the iceberg of what I can teach these guys. It's really, they're not. I need more kids. I need more kids in this program, and if I don't get them by next September, I don't know if we're going to be around. I've got a year. I've got one more year to do this, because it's ruined my.
What's it like? How are the parents? I mean, are they pretty receptive with bringing their kids to do something like this? I mean, how?
Once they do it, once they're here.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can talk to some of the parents maybe in another time, but.
Well, my curiosity is especially even in Utah. I'm wondering, what's the receptive like with parents? Oh, my kids are playing rock and roll, or,
I went through those issues when I opened the first school of rock, and having teenage boys sing "Give the Dog a Bone" by AC/DC, probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
And I got called on that by a parent. I was like, your son doesn't need to play on that song.
Yeah.
It's a shitty song anyway. Just dump it from the set. But to have to sing, some other song where some undesirable word is present, it's like that's the song. It's like your kid's playing rock music. It's going to be a little edgy. If it's just like one word or something, I'm not going to get into too much editing. If it's really implicitly sexual and it's like inappropriate, like a teenage girl is singing it and it's like, she's 14 and she's singing about something nasty, then I'll be like, let's change that lyric. So it's really case by case. I don't like changing lyrics of songs for kids.
But didn't you say that they pick their own songs anyway? So they
pick them, but I have to kind of go through them. I have to kind of go through the songs and look at, when they play the song, I'm like, okay, that's a cool song. They know what they can get away with. With their parents. They know their parents are paying the bill, and they know their parents are coming to the show. So they know what kind of crap they can pull, so to speak. What was I going to say? The rewards, the rewards for kids and families that stay here is that, rock and roll is multi-generational. So a song by the Beatles from 1968, 50 years later, or whatever it is, 40 some odd years later, is the same form. It still has accents on the 2 and the 4. It's still like with a kick and a snare and it's a drum beat. It's not like jazz. Like, my dad's music was big band jazz. Yeah. It's still the same form. Marilyn Manson and Seether and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles could all cover Buddy Holly. 1950s rock. It's the same form. You know what I mean?
I gotcha.
So that means that it's multi-generational. So in rock music, at our shows, you get grandparents, parents, kids, their friends, and their little siblings
that are
all digging on the same jams.
Yeah.
So it's like, and in a lot of cases, knowing the song. Because we play a lot of old stuff.
Yeah. You were showing me the list downstairs, too.
Yeah. So, and sure, and we're playing some System of a Down, and we're playing, some newer stuff, Porcupine Tree and this and that. But it's what the kids bring to the table. And where do they get their musical taste from? Probably their parents a little bit, probably a little bit, from school or whatever. But it's all good. It's all good, And the great news is that I got a call a few months ago from a fellow named Caleb Chapman. And Caleb is got more awards from Downbeat Magazine, the jazz magazine, on his walls than anybody I know. And they're all for kids and jazz, right? He's in Utah County. And he's an amazing human being. And his kids are playing Carnegie Hall next year. I mean, that's how good they are. They tour Europe. They're badass little jazz players. And they're teenage boys, mostly, and girls from Utah. And so he called me and said, Steve, I've been tasked with being the music director for this new high school. It's a performing arts high school in American Fork, and I'd like you to run the rock and pop curriculum. I was like, cool. So now I'm doing the same work, very part-time, a couple days a week, in a public school.
Wow.
You know, it's a public school. It's like paid for with tax dollars. It's the most gratifying thing. So, and that's where I really thought all of this stuff should have been. Like the project with the Paul Green School of Rock Music that I did up in Park City in the school, there's more profit in that than owning the school. There's no rent. They took a small administrative percentage. I mean, they were fools to close that down. Fools. It's just the new manager didn't want to do the work. It was a lot of work.
Wow.
Because you had to get in there and set everything up. But, you know, I believe that this stuff should be in the schools.
Absolutely.
You know? I mean, and it becomes an entree. The schools don't get it. I don't think from a pragmatic point of view. I think it's an entree into jazz and classical is what it is. Like if a kid sits around and goes and claps their hands when they're 2 and 3 or 4 and singing along with records and stuff and has an interest in music, they don't want to play a French horn. Now, there's anything wrong with playing a French horn, but they want to rock out. So the quicker we can get an instrument in their hands that sounds like what they're playing on the radio, right, or what they're listening to at home or online or wherever, that's going to get them hooked on music sooner. And what's music about? Music is math. Music is entirely based on mathematics, and physics. So like, they're going to become smarter people faster if you put an electric guitar in their hand as opposed to a flute. Only because they're just not playing flute music on the radio.
They want to be like their heroes in their.
Well, the rock and roll hero has sort of gone away a little bit, but you know, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Or their idols. Their idols, maybe.
I guess, yeah. It's no. I mean, the thing about like the rock and roll hero has kind of gone away a little bit. It's not like no one's going to reinvent playing the guitar like maybe some people, but Jimi Hendrix.
I was just thinking,
and then you look at then Steve Vai did something new with it in the '80s, in the '90s, and he's still doing something new with it. And then Terrence Hansen from Salt Lake, this miraculous guitar player, just completely, people look at it and go like, "What the heck is that?" He plays a double cross neck guitar. It's crazy.
I'd love to check him out.
Yeah, it's crazy. So. The other thing I don't do is there was an advertising campaign on the website for the School of Rock for a long time that I didn't like when I was working there and after I left. And it was like, want to be a rock star. Now, I've worked with a lot of rock stars, my share. There's not very many that I really wanted to hang out with. I'd take their money and work for them.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with being a rock star, but think about that for a minute. Is that what you want to sell to a 14-year-old boy? Yeah. Is that what you want to sell to a 14-year-old boy? No. It's both. This dichotomy of like, yeah, you want to sell them on the idea of playing music, but I don't feed the fantasy here. There's no fantasy. It's just all reality. It's just like, great job. Oh, you could work harder. That was good, but you could do better. But no blow and smoke up kids' butts. No like, oh man, you were awesome. And then that they were lazy and didn't do a good job and they sang out of key. So there's none of that. Not that other programs do that. But there's more a sense of like reality. Just like this is what it is. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's just have fun. You're 12.
What's the youngest student that you've had? 10 years old?
Yeah, I didn't even want to take a 10-year-old. But when he played that guitar, I was like, I'll take him.
Yeah.
That's why I don't put an age limit on it. People ask me, what ages do you take kids? I said, that wouldn't be fair to the kid.
Yeah.
Have them come, bring their instrument, and have them just come play with us. That's what we do. That's how we audition. We just jam with them. Just have them come in. It's very informal, and kids come and visit, and they meet the other kids. It's more like, hi, how are you? What's your name? Where do you go to school? Oh, cool. What do you here to play? You got a guitar there, or is that a bass? And then it's like, what are you going to play? I say, well, I looked at your song list, and I like that Led Zeppelin song or something. It's like, okay, come jam. And then they'll play it. And I get to see how the kid does with the other kids. I get to see how the kid plays with the other kids. And then Terrence gives an eyeball to it too, and has someone else to look at it. But it's not just about me and Terrence. Any musician that's not a felon, can come volunteer here.
Yeah.
As long as you don't have a felonious background, you can come here, volunteer, work with the kids.
How many volunteers do you have here?
It's right now. It's me and Terrence.
You and Terrence.
Yeah.
So you guys.
Allison Martin was here for a long time, like a year and a half. Allison Martin was in Cave Doll, and she was in. She's now in a project called Bell Rave. She's in Wanagani. She's in a bunch of bands locally. She's a great girl, great musician, and so, I really want to mix it up more. And there's sort of like an open invitation all the time for musicians to just come and work with the kids. So, for listeners out there who are hearing the podcast and want to support what we're doing,
that's
they can always donate an old drum kit or an instrument or an amplifier. Or if they want to write a check, they can write a check. If they want to write a small check under $250, it's not tax deductible, but we'd really appreciate it. And they can go on our website, do it electronically as a place to donate. If they want to volunteer their time, they can just get in touch with me at 801-577-BAND. That's our phone number.
And I'll put all this information on the website too.
Cool. Yeah, 577-2263. But really, what I want to do is get the word out on what I think is important work, and that we're teaching kids how to be respectful to each other, and how to work as a team, and not necessarily well modeled by our Congress these days or other places in the country. It's hard to see that happen other than in sports and some other places where it's a lot about the individual.
Yeah.
So this is, it's a different kind of sport. Our kids, I don't know if any of our kids are lettering on a sports team. They're all kind of creative kids. Not that they don't play athletics, but they're they're musicians. That's what they want to do with their time. Like if they have spare time during the week after school, that's what they want to do. They want to play music. And this place is theirs, until I get that 100 kids enrolled, every hour of every day that this place isn't booked for rehearsal, it's theirs to use. They can have their own bands. If they want to put together bands, bring their friends and come jam. As long as people are respectful and act right, they can use the place as much as they want. They already paid their fee.
Yeah.
I'm not going to charge them by the hour to use the place. And I want them going to each other's homes and forming bands. And then what we are is really a band incubator, because our kids meet each other. They learn how to play with each other because they're not in a band, right? We showed you this downstairs. And for people listening, they don't understand. Maybe I should explain that there's up to maybe 20 kids coming in an evening of 3 hours. And once we hit 20, we got to break it in half. So, and make 2 nights out of it. But right now we're building up to that breaking point, right? We want to get more and more kids going so that we can't serve them. I've got 3 band setups as it is. And so we can have 3 bands going at once, which occupies about 15 kids at once. And the other 4 or 5 can be sitting around and doing homework or tuning their guitars or whatever and getting ready for the next song, because we only spend 15 minutes on each song or something, because they learn their parts at home. And so, what I want to see is more kids.
Yeah.
I want every kid that wants to be in a band that is not at School of Rock and not in some other program and doesn't have a band to get his butt over here. I don't care about the money. I just want them here. I want them in my program. I want them meeting these great other kids. I want them getting a sense of self and a place to belong in the community, because, like I'm saying, like a lot of these kids, they're not into sports. This is their thing. This is how they're going to get their sense of this is who I am. I'm a musician. That's cool. That's so cool. In my high school, that got you some props, back in the day. Because if you could hang with our crew of kids, because we had a big music department, you know what I mean? It was really competitive. But if you could say that you were a musician, that's your set, that's who you hang with, that's cool. And I want the same thing for Utah. I want kids that are in music to be respected. And it's happening. It's happening in the jazz scene with Caleb Chapman. It's happening in the rock scene a little bit here.
What do you think of the music scene here in Salt Lake City?
Oh, it was so great. It's changed. But you know, it's one thing. Okay, so here's the thing with Salt Lake: people here are too nice.
Yeah.
They are. They don't tell people you suck. I mean, I'm sorry. When I brought my people in from School of Rock nationally to come in, and I took them out to the Urban Lounge to hear the best local bands, they're like, "You got to be fucking kidding me." They were just like, "You got to be kidding me. This is, and this guy works for you." They just didn't get it. Now, they're entitled to be jerks. They're all from Philadelphia and New York and New Jersey or whatever, right? So there's a cultural difference too. And there's also what's popular here is different. But there's multiple generations of bands here that have followed a lineage of bands. And the popular ones, gosh, how do I say this right? There are some bands here that are popular that just aren't very good. And that goes for any city, okay? And there are some unpopular bands here that are completely awesome. And there's a couple of popular bands that are completely awesome too. So I guess to answer your question, the nightclub scene for bands here sucks. It's gotten worse than ever. It's hard to get in. It's hard to sustain gigs. There's more venues than ever before, and they're not necessarily good venues. Well, by that, I mean like a good rock music venue has a personality. The only one that has a personality really is the Urban Lounge. And I'm older. So there's two things there, double-edged sword, when you ask me that question. I'm always going to think like, oh, the heyday of the Zephyr Club and the heydays of whatever, you know, like.
I miss the Zephyr Club.
Yeah, but anyone would.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about Salt Lake. Well, that's the Zephyr Club. I mean, I did a little bit of a documentary film on it, and in this chapter that I posted online, I'll send you the link. But the Zephyr Club was unique. When I came to Salt Lake and I hit the club scene, I went out to listen to live music, which is the only reason I would ever go to a club, really, unless I was really, really wanting to meet someone. That's why I go out. I go out to hear music. That's been my life. You know, it's like it's what I do. So I go to the Zephyr Club and I opened up their schedule, and I looked at the week or the month or whatever, and it was like Monday it's Agent Orange, Tuesday it was like Adrian Belew from King Crimson or something. Then Wednesday it was B.B. King or someone. I mean, just like crazy famous people. Then Thursday it'd be Kansas or some local band. Then Friday it was some touring regional band from Portland or whatever. And then, but spotted throughout the month, every month for years, it was like you could go to a 400 capacity room, if that, pay 10 or 15 bucks and hear King Sunny Ade from Nigeria.
Yeah.
And then see her, and then you know all these other world class acts in a tiny room. And then the bands got on, because what was happening was the Zephyr Club was open at a time when there were no venues to play between Reno and Denver. There was no place. So when Otto Milletti opened the Zephyr and got onto Polestar, which is the routing book, like the magazine, to get bands booked, and he got on Polestar, it's like every booking agent in the planet wanted a gig in Salt Lake because they were having to pay for rooms and meals because the drivers had to sleep by law. This was more than a 10-hour drive from Reno to Denver.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so it was costing the bands to come to Salt Lake.
So they might as well play anyways.
And might as well play anyways, right? And get free rooms, and get meals, and then get paid. So instead of Salt Lake becoming a dead, layover for them, or a place to stay, it became a good gig. Not in terms of money, but the Zephyr Club was really unique. It had this balcony, right? And part of the audience was under the balcony, and the way that the place opened up acoustically, on stage, it was shockingly loud from the audience. So when an audience cheered at the Zephyr, plus being starved for music in Salt Lake, in a way, because like you're kind of in the middle of the West, it's like 5-hour drive to get anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Or 8 hours really to Denver or Vegas or what. Anyway, so oh my God, the audiences were so enthusiastic. So the Zephyr Club.
I've been to
Right.
many shows there
Okay,
years
so
and years ago.
The bands felt the love
Yeah.
every time. And they would just be like, wow, we love playing here. We love playing Salt Lake. And the reason was some of these little things. It's a small room. The sound system was really great. They had good engineers. They paid attention to the music. And it was like...
That's why it's so depressing to still walk by there and see it sitting there.
I know. It's the stupidest story. If I ever told it to you, you'd just be like crying. It's the stupidest. They just lost the lease. They didn't renew the lease. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Otto was just like, yeah, I should just renew that lease. But he was on month to month, and it came to the end of the lease term, and the guy just was like, no, I'm not going to renew it.
Yeah.
He wanted to compete with him. He wanted to set up his own club there.
Well, anyways, I probably better get this wrapped up here, anyways.
And
anything else you want to add about the music garage or anything?
Yeah, well, it's a long interview.
I'll get all the contact information on the website.
Sure.
And you offer other things here for other musicians too, recording things.
Basically, Music Garage. It's got we've got all these offices that I subsidize the rent for. Musicians, producers, booking agents. They can rent an office here cheap and be part of a community. We're the only hourly rehearsal hall in town that's fully dressed with backline and gear and all that, so people can just walk in here and plug and play it. They love that. The big thing that's going on here and the trend that I'm seeing and the usefulness of Music Garage to the music scene is shooting videos. Online on YouTube, the amount of shitty band videos out there is just astounding.
Yeah.
And, you can come here, throw a little party with your friends, have a little private party, have 50 of your closest fans or friends come, have the band play a show, set up several cameras with your friends' cameras. They're all HD these days, right?
Yeah.
So you get a decent image, and then record it. We're a laptop-friendly recording facility. It's all live. We don't do multi-track, so you can come in. We'll set up however many channels of live audio capture to your laptop, and you just take it and edit it at home. And then do your own. So we're a very homegrown kind of place.
It seems like a neat place. My first time here tonight,
Thanks.
And I appreciate you letting me into your facility and checking it out.
I'm glad you put the call out on Facebook for doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything else?
Salt Lake is a great town for music.
It really is.
It always has been.
It really is.
There's so many bands here that I love, and I could just go through a laundry list of great bands. But I think that the fans here are just the best. People are so loyal, and they'll go out and they'll support their friends and they'll support music here. And there's a lot of, I think, pride developing about our music scene. And we do need to have a local hero. I mean, it was nice to see Neon Trees from Utah County do really well, and they're a freaking awesome band.
Great band.
And it's really nice to see, some of the other bands around here. I know Gentry Densley's been doing some touring with his project. He's coming back. In fact, he's got an Iceburn show. Was
just last Saturday.
Yeah, I missed it. So I went to the last reunion, and that was great. And that's there's bands that are just innovative and doing interesting things. I mean, there's so many of them, and I'm not even going to name them all, but because I feel like I'd leave someone out and they'd get their feelings hurt. But I mean,
it happens.
But it's really, really, really cool. There are some very talented producers here, very, very talented. And my job, what I see my role as being is sort of a hub for all this. What I want to see is this place chock full of music people, and for the word to get out about Music Garage so that bands that are touring maybe even start their tour here. Maybe they're interested, just like flying to Salt Lake and then starting everything here. That would be great. Trucking in the gear, just like Taking Back Sunday did. That was so cool for Vans Warped Tour. That's great. But I want to be a resource for musicians and producers here in town. I think we can all work together and do great things.
Yeah.
And if I have my druthers, these kids will form great friendships. They'll form great bands, and maybe one of them will, get a song on the radio or something.
The next big band come out of Salt Lake, right?
Whatever. I mean, again, that's not what I tell them.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I want to tell them. But I'd love to have them. I'd love to help breed the success. In other words, in my career, I've been so lucky to work with so many gifted and famous people that just have such a sense of self and such a creative sense, They're able to let the art flow but know how to do the business. They're able to be focused for an interview but know that they've got to get on to the next thing. Really professional.
Yeah.
And amongst all these people that I've met over the last 35 years or whatever, they share some characteristics. And I'm trying to breed those characteristics in these kids. And I think that's probably the big difference between Paul Green and me, is that Paul didn't meet any rock stars until he became a famous music educator. Whereas I got to work with all these rock stars before I became a music educator. So it's a little different. It's like Paul had the experience of taking his kids to Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull and saying, here's my brilliant kid that can play your music. Or Ian Anderson of Ian Anderson of Yes, or John Anderson of Yes, Ian Anderson of Jethro Tull. Sorry, they're all British with Anderson names. But the point is that Paul brought up the kids and delivered them to the rock stars. What I'm trying to do is take the kids and deliver them to rock, but without telling them that they're going to be a star, without breeding that at all, and just having fun,
All right. Thank you so much, Steve, for coming on and telling me your story. Again, thank you to everybody that stayed in and listened to the conversation. Thank you for subscribing to the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Thank you for your continual support. Remember, you can hit us up online at iamsaltlake.com. That's going to connect you with everything and anything you need to know about us. Until next time, we'll be back on Wednesday with another interview, another person to get to know in Salt Lake City, Utah. Until then, again, this is the I Am Salt Lake podcast. You guys have a good night.